Welcome to the official podcast at ContentChampion.com. Join our heroic quest to discover truly epic content. Introducing your host, the content champion himself, Lost James.
Hi folks, and welcome to session 10 of the Content Champion podcast. Just a quick announcement to start off with. You can still enter the Content Champion Awards with your best content marketing material at ContentChampion.com/awards. Now, on this week's show, I'm really excited to be talking to Brian Dean of Backlinko.com. Brian is a creative and innovative SEO expert, and I talked to him for over an hour about how to build and rank authority sites that really make money. One of Brian's own authority sites makes over $9,000 a month, so you really want to listen to what he's got to say. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. Thanks very much for coming on today, Brian.
Hey, thanks for having me, Laz.
Now, this podcast is all about creating high-quality content, and you're a great exponent of this at Backlinko.com. Could you start by telling us your story and how you became an SEO expert, please?
Sure. Well, I started my kind of professional career as a dietitian, and then I got my master's in nutrition, and I was studying a PhD, and it was awful, so I left. But it actually was probably the best decision I ever made in life, because I stumbled across the book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss.
Right.
And I had never really been exposed to entrepreneurship before. I'd always wanted to be an employee, and my whole family are all employees. I don't have one entrepreneur anywhere in my family, right, left, up and down. So the concept of like starting my own business was very foreign to me. So when I read this book, my favorite part about it was that it was very empowering. It was basically saying you can totally do this. So I started an information product in the nutrition niche, and it didn't really go well because that's one flaw of the 4-Hour Workweek is that it doesn't really give you like a step-by-step plan on how to launch a business, which is not a criticism of the book. That's really hard to encompass in a single book. And then I started doing that, and I had a real job on the side. And then I started freelance writing. And I had a specialty of nutrition, so I was writing a lot of health and weight loss related articles. And on the side, I was kind of launching these sites, these little niche sites, try to rank them in Google and make some money from AdSense and that kind of thing. And that's when I learned SEO, kind of just by messing up a lot. And I would say about 2 years ago, I started to get the hang of it, started to get consistent results, and that's when I started like doing SEO full time.
Okay, and that led on to your blog, Backlinko.com, which is just fantastic. I've been eating up all your articles. It's just a great resource if you want to learn about, step-by-step SEO strategies and techniques.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I started that about in December, so about 9 months ago. Yeah, and it's been a wild ride, man. Like as soon as I started it, I promoted it, and I got some good feedback. So that's my number one project right now. I just put it up. I saw the opportunity there. So that's what I'm doing most of the day.
And the thing I want to talk about today is obviously this feeds into the content you're putting on Backlinko, but also your building of authority sites, the niche sites you just mentioned in the intro there, and how you've sort of learnt how to rank these sites, because that's really interesting to my listeners. So, the idea of researching, creating, promoting authority sites. Could you outline how you go about choosing a profitable niche, and how do you make money from those sites or research those niches in the first place?
Sure. Well, there's a couple places I go, and I should say this, that I don't do it that often because I'm not into launching, a bunch of sites. I'm all about creating, one site and focusing on one site at a time. So that would be one thing I'd recommend, because that's a mistake I made starting out. And I still get a lot of emails from people who say like, I started 8 sites last week. How do I rank them all? And it's very difficult to do that, because it's better to do like one thing whole-assed than 2 things half-assed. And if you're going to do, if you take that to its maximum and you have 10 sites, it's difficult to do that. So as much as this process is repeatable, it's not something that I've done in a long time, because I'm basically focusing on I have 2 authority sites, Backlinko and another one, and that is in a different niche. So this is how I go about it. I basically look at where the money is. So I look at what type of traffic and and leads people are already paying for. That's huge. It all starts there, because another mistake I made, one of many, was launching sites that are difficult to monetize. So I'd like to start with the money. So I don't look at keywords, I don't look at traffic. So one place I like to look is called offervault.com.
Okay.
And another place I recommend is odigger.com. And those are both sites that aggregate CPA offers, which stands for cost per action. And that's how I monetize my authority site. And CPA offers are basically similar to affiliate marketing. Someone clicks on your affiliate link, they go to an offer, and the difference between CPA and like promoting a product on ClickBank is that these people usually don't pay. It's usually for a lead, right? So that really really segments the market into demographics, because if people are willing to pay for this person's contact information, that says something about that source of traffic, right? Versus a ClickBank product where it may target a specific demographic kind of, but not really. So if you go to OfferVault and you see, for example, that there's a lot of offers for, let's say, leads for people who want a nursing degree, that gives you an idea that traffic is so valuable, someone's willing to pay $20 just for a lead. That might be a niche to look into.
Okay.
So it's a good place just to pop around and kind of see what's up for brainstorming. Right, and then from there, you take those keywords that you see in OfferVault and you put them into Google Keyword Planner tool, and you check out search volume and things like that. And I can talk about that step of the process. But it begins there. I think, in my opinion, that's the best place to start looking.
So start with the money, build out the keywords from there. As we're talking now, it's the beginning of September 2013. Google have just changed the keyword tool into the keyword planner, haven't they? So we then feed our keywords into that. And what's your process then?
Well, my process is to find between 50 and 100 keywords that are very tightly related that I could build a site around.
Okay.
So that's my process, because I used to just look for one keyword. So it'd be like nursing degrees. And I would pin all my hopes and dreams on this one keyword and rank it for this single keyword. So I've changed my process quite a bit. And the authority site that I built that's done well has about 60 pages of content on it. And that site has about 100 keywords that I target. And I drip about one post a month on that site. So that's what you want to look for. You want to look for less of niche is actually accurate, but niche sites typically are keyword sites. They're not really niche sites, right? Most people are going after one keyword. But I prefer to make a true niche site that covers one subset of a niche very well. So, you'd have a topic like online degrees, right? That's more of a broader topic. And then within that, you'd have something like nursing degrees, and that's more of a niche.
Okay. So we're looking at really what Google wants now, authority sites. I know a lot of my listeners and me personally as well used to build the one keyword sites and had some success with those before the Google changes. Kind of a lot of people are going to be terrified about building a 50, 100 page site and Google dumping it, despite them trying to do sort of white hat techniques for link building. So we're going to move on to that later, but you've got your keyword map now. From what sort of keyword metrics are you looking for when you've put them in terms of competition? How does that all work?
That's a good question. I don't go nuts about competition because, first of all, it's really difficult to estimate accurately. Google uses, it's funny because, Google uses 200 ranking signals to rank pages. And if you look at any of the keyword competition software, it usually looks at like 4 or 5. Now, of course, they're not all weighted equally, and the 4 or 5 that those tools tend to look at are the most important ones. So there's some value to be had from looking at competition using tools like Market Samurai or SE Cockpit or Longtail Pro or something like that. But I don't like to go crazy because then you start making like arbitrary metrics, like it has to have a competition score of whatever, or it just is more trouble than it's worth. So, what I like to do is take, let's say if you have 50 keywords, look at the 10 that you really want to rank, the highest volume keywords in your list, and actually look at the top 10. So if you want to make it easier, you can install like SE Quake, on your browser or
Yep.
or Moz bar. And what that does is it has something called a SERP overlay, and that shows you the metrics that basically the tools show you anyway on the Google top 10. So you can see, like, if you put in like nursing degrees, for example, and the top 10 is like 7 EDUs, US News and World Report, and CNN.com, right? And don't go after that keyword, right? That's maybe not the best idea. But if you see that it's maybe other niche sites or like easy articles or something like that, that's where you know there's some opportunity there. So I just look at the top 10 and kind of give it a once over. And if I see that it's like smaller brands that are ranking, you know, not like Fortune 500s, and some, you know, smaller sites, or maybe some articles on larger sites that don't have a lot of page authority, that's, you know, where I see opportunities. But I don't have any like specific metrics because it totally depends on the niche too. You know, that's why I don't give search volume stuff, because, you know, if you have a site about car insurance, you know, you can make a lot of money from 10 visitors a day. But if you have a site about like watching Breaking Bad online, you need like 20,000 visitors a day to make a dime, right? So it's hard to give any specific data, but you definitely want to, you know, take competition seriously. I don't mean like, oh, I don't care about competition, I'm a ball, I can rank for anything. I mean, just don't, you know, you don't want to obsess over it. You want to kind of get a broad idea about where you can enter this space and how you can, you know, rank for those keywords. So it's more like it's more like market research than keyword research.
Okay, and that feeds into, then you've got your keywords, you've done all the research on them, you pick what a great, good quality WordPress theme that would fit that audience, add value, and then you start producing your content. How does that roll out?
Well, first I would create a brand. So I'd create a branded domain name.
Okay.
That would actually be like the next step. So I would look at these 50 to 100 keywords for my niche authority site and say like, okay, what's a brand name, you know, that may or may not include the keyword, probably not, and, you know, would really be memorable and would also be something that people would type into Google, because that's really important brand signal, is that people type your brand name into Google. And you don't have to be like YouTube or Skype to get people to do that. If you have any presence online, all people will do that. But they'll only do it if you have a memorable, unique domain name. So, you know, if you're trying to rank for like Samson microphone, you don't want to create like SamsonMicrophoneHQ.com. You know, that's from pre-Penguin type of thing. You'd want to create some like microphone headquarters, you know, or like mics.com, something clever, right?
Yeah.
And then people would type that into Google more often, which will give you a little brand signal boost, and it'll just keep things memorable, which is important. So then that's the next step. And then to roll out the content, I usually just have like 5 or 10 posts ready to go on day one, and then I just drip them out and whatever velocity I can handle. So if let's say there's like 150, like somehow you're able to find 150 keywords in your space, you'd want to, you know, drip them more frequently. But in my particular case, the authority site that I have in the other niche, I'm already running out of keywords. So I have like 60, and there's maybe like 20 that are even okay, and then 10 that are kind of like super long tail that I'm afraid to even post because they might get hit by Panda, so I don't even have content around those keywords. So definitely, you know, don't just drip for the sake of keeping your site up to date. Google doesn't care about that. So I just have the 10 posts ready to go, and then drip them as fast as you can. That makes sense for your site.
So this freshness stuff, could you just explain a bit more what you're saying about you're frightened of getting penalised for doing those longer tail searches? That's because it just looks like you're desperately trying to rank those pages.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I haven't been penalized, but I'm very cognizant of that fact. I'm very careful about it. But I've seen other clients that have got hit, and in some ways it's harder to get out of a Panda penalty. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, Panda is like this penalty that rolled out before Penguin that targeted sites that, you know, had thin kind of duplicate content on their site. And not duplicate in the sense it's exactly the same, but just like a lot of overlap and a lot of low quality content. How they're able to discern that with an algorithm, no one knows, but they're actually pretty good at it. So, you know, like if you have a keyword, let's say like, you know, nurse, like how to choose a nursing school, you know, that's your keyword. You don't want to create another article, even if the keyword is separate, you know, like how to pick a nursing school, right? A lot of people still do that, and a lot of people did that and got burned. So you'd want to create, if you do go after both keywords, definitely make the other article like totally different, totally different than the other one, and you're safe. But I find that the more long tail you get, the more it tends to overlap with the content that's already on your site, and it's difficult to create something new. So in terms of that, that's why I'm worried about being penalized. In terms of freshness is definitely important for certain keywords. They kind of, I don't know how they figured out either, but certain keywords are given like a freshness, label, and then fresh content tends to get a temporary boost while it's still fresh. But that's not the case for most keywords.
Okay, so most keywords are kind of more static. They're on,
exactly.
I guess some are newsworthy and they're more fluid, as it were.
Exactly. So maybe people are searching for for some reason in Google on-page SEO, I'm ranking for that keyword, so I know that is more of like a freshness one. And then something like link building doesn't have that. So why one no one knows. But obviously, some topics that are being written about a lot, especially on Google news sites, that'll get more of a huge freshness boost actually. And then those that don't, it's not something you have to worry about too much. Although it's always good to go back to your content and change some things around just to make it look fresh, but it's not that important.
So really, in terms of content, we're informed by our keywords, but then we're going to go into the top 10 and we're going to say, how can I add more value to real viewers for these subjects? So if the keyword is how to train to be a nurse, whatever it is, how can I write better content that gives more value to the other sites ranking in the top 10 around that sort of search? Is that the process? That's
basically the process. And you don't have to do that for 100% of your keywords. So, if you're targeting 100 keywords, you don't have to create like 100, mind-blowing pieces of content. That's not necessary. It would definitely help. But what you want to do is for those really competitive ones, look at the top 10 in your niche ranking already, and then make something better. But I notice a lot of people are like, my content, is better than what's out there. They email me or put on industry forums like Warrior Forum. And it's like, my competition, their article's like 800 words and mine's 900. It's so much better. It should be ranking. But the mentality you really have to have is that if you want to rank in the top 10 for something competitive, you have to create something that's really objectively better than what's out there. So if you showed it to 100 people, 99 people would agree that yours is the best. And to do that, you can't just one-up them a little bit. You usually have to blow them out of the water because they have a huge advantage. They're already ranking, right? So just by ranking, it's something called the flywheel effect, where when people, you rank your content, then people see it and they share it on social media or they link to it, which makes it go higher, and more people see it and they share it and they link to it. So they have a huge advantage that you don't because you're invisible at the moment. So you really have to blow them out of the water with your stuff. And for really competitive keywords, that's what I recommend doing. Look at the top 10 and see like where is there a content gap? Where can I make something even better than what's out there? And you just rinse and repeat that process for your more short tail keywords that you have on your list.
And you did this, didn't you, with your 200 Google ranking signals? That's one of the things. Wasn't it you said that the other guy had 50 of them and you thought, right, I'll try and get all of them?
Basically, that's what I did, right, exactly. So in that case, it was easier to figure out where I could fill in the gaps because it was an objective number. So this guy, he had like 100 of the 200 ranking factors, and maybe another one I think had maybe 120, but no one touched 200. And actually halfway through that thing, I really didn't think I was going to be able to hit 200. It was really a lot more work than I planned. It was crazy. But once you hit like 150, you can't go back. You have to go all the way. So I didn't. But the important thing for that post was I didn't just create 200, and they had like 150 or 100. I knew that they had the first mover advantage and they had the flywheel effect in their favor, and I didn't. So I also added value in a couple other ways. So usually they just listed the ranking factors just like kind of in bullets. So I made sure on each one to expand upon it and give a little more detailed information on each one. And then I also made the design look a lot better than there. So if you can, beat their content on multiple levels, and you know how to promote your content, you will be first. But if you're not planning on creating like one of the top 10 pieces of content for a competitive keyword, then you will not be on the first page.
And is it literally that you look at the top 10 and you gauge what's working really well and you just go you don't, as you say, just go beyond that. You blow it out the water. But we don't want to enter a sort of arms race with content where, I've got a link back to, I don't know, all the different nursing resources, to use an example of how to train to be a nurse. Then I've got an interview with a chief nursing officer. Then I've got, a video series with it. Do you see what I mean? You have to stop somewhere, don't you?
Well, I guess you do, because but the fact is, Laws, it is an arms race right now out there with content, right? And but it's kind of like you have to keep up, or you're going to be kind of buried by the people who are just going crazy. And if you look at someone like Neil Patel from QuickSprout, the stuff he's publishing is unbelievable.
40,000 words and stuff.
Yeah, 40,000 words, all custom designed and coded. It costs him $50,000 to produce a piece of content. That, if you're in the internet marketing space, is your competition. So if you're not willing to keep up with that, then you'll just be invisible. It sounds awful to say, but it's the case right now. But you can beat them by being creative. It doesn't have to be an arms race where it's you're trying to produce more than they are, or make it better. You can also beat them with creativity, because a lot of these big businesses that you're competing with, that's their huge disadvantage, that they're slow moving and they're not creative. So if you wanted to create something in the nursing space, how about like an infographic? I've never even seen, I don't know this space very well, but like an infographic about how to choose a nursing degree. That's like a flow chart. Do you like working with people? Yes. Move on to the next part of the flow chart. How much money do you want to make? More than 50,000 pounds a year? Yes. Move on to this one. That's something that you could make for like $250, and you could potentially leverage that to the first page. So you don't have to get into this. Yeah, like you're right. You don't have to get into this arms race. And if Neil puts out a guide that's 50,000 words, you have to create a 100,000 word guide. That doesn't make sense. So you're right in that sense.
I think a lot of people underestimated Google, though, because to do that algorithmically, they're obviously not sending a manual reviewer to each and every site. That would be impossible. To manually to algorithmically look at the top 10 and be able to identify how that content is better is a pretty mean piece of programming, isn't it?
It is, man. It was millions of dollars, and they hire geniuses to work on it all day. So you can imagine that, like, the best of the best coming out of Stanford and Oxford, they're getting recruited by Google. But the beautiful part of the Google algorithm, and the reason it works so well, is because they're not actually doing the work. What they're really doing is looking at signals that are created by the masses and just interpreting them, right? So a link is really just like a vote from another site. They don't have anything to do with the link. They just, interpret it in a certain way. So it is a mean piece of programming, because it's 200 ranking signals, but 100% of those are coming from other people. They're not doing the work. It's a total democratic system of who gets in the top 10.
So the little guy can still do this?
Absolutely. Yeah, man. I didn't mean to say the little guy, but you can't be if you can still be a little guy, but you can't be a total little guy, with a $50 budget. It just isn't happening anymore. You really do need to invest money in the site like it's a real business. Because I've done it both ways, man. I have done, the little one keyword niche sites, and I've done like a real site that I invested a lot of money into. And I can tell you that it makes a lot more money when you invest into it. So you definitely want to, that's one of the advantages of having one site versus several, is that it actually costs about the same amount, and you just make a lot more because you're focusing that money in one place.
But you've got to be sure you're starting with the money. You've got to make sure that money is in that sector first. Otherwise, all your work will go to waste, because there'll be no way to monetize that ultimately.
Exactly. I made that mistake. I had a site once that got 2,000 uniques a day from Google. And I think I was making like $25 a day from AdSense. It was awful. So I've been there. And then I have sites, that have made like $1 per visitor. So that's why you definitely want to start with where the money's at.
It makes sense, really, because I've been copywriting for 15 years, and my main site has always been my copywriting site, and that pays the mortgage. So that's a website selling services, but because it's me personally, I put my heart and soul into that, and that's really the way these algorithmic changes have gone. Google is saying you've got to do that to everything you put online, otherwise we're not going to reward you with good rankings.
Absolutely. It's a simple fact. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's a lot of people but I like that personally. I like that it's harder to get into, and there's a higher barrier to entry because that's less competition. Before Penguin, it was like it was just insane. I remember when the site that I spoke of that had 2,000 visitors a day, I remember I was number 1 for this keyword, and then like a week later I was number 2, and like the top 10 was just in constant flux with all these spammy sites, including my own, that were ranking, and I realized that anyone could just get into this, and now it's not like that. So whenever someone asks me, like, what's the first thing I should do? I want to get into SEO, I want to launch a site and make money from the site. I always tell them, save money and have a marketing budget. It doesn't have to be huge, you don't need like 10 grand, but you do need some money for like a custom design, a logo. I mean, this is like fundamental stuff that used to be a big part of launching a site, but there was like this brief kind of dark ages where anyone could rank, any site with any, ugly theme and awful content. But those days are really gone. So I would recommend that people do what they have to do to invest in their site, even a niche site.
Yeah, I'm quickly forgetting all my review sites that I had a few years ago because they kind of fell into that. So moving on, you've mentioned links. You are the author of the great new blog, Backlinko.com. We really obviously can find out a lot of what you're doing by going there. But for the purposes of today's podcast, how do you start off linking to these sites? Because a lot of people, me included, are going to be terrified of going too fast, tripping some algorithm. How do we do this and stay on the right side of Google whilst getting some rankings?
Well, that's a good question. And it's okay to have a little healthy fear, I think, about the algorithm, because one of the reasons that a lot of sites got penalized, including some of my spammier sites, was because I just had no fear. I thought I could get away with anything and I would never get slapped. And that's obviously not the case. So it's okay to have a little bit of healthy fear, because what that does is it puts you in the perspective of like, okay, how can I build really good links? And actually a good rule of thumb that you should take, I'll get into specifics in a minute, but a good rule of thumb that I read in a forum, it's like a golden piece of advice, that is, if when you build a link, before you do it, ask yourself, will I still want this link here in a year from now? And if the answer is no, don't build it. So that's a great approach to take, because that basically eliminates a lot of the link packages and blog networks and stuff like that really doesn't work so well anymore. But even if it does, it's just temporary. So the first step is to create one piece of content on your site that you can leverage for links. Okay, so like we were talking about before, you look at the top 10, and then you create a piece of content that objectively beats what's already out there. So like I say, you don't need to do that 100 times, but if you have one piece of content that is sort of your spotlight content that you can show off, you can leverage that for links using, a few different strategies I can talk about in the podcast. But that's definitely step one, because if you have a site that's just like, okay, it's really hard to build links to, because what we're basically doing is reaching out to people who run sites in the industry and kind of asking them to link. Now, there's more nuances in that, but that's the fundamental approach that I take to link building, because it works really well. But you do need that content to leverage. So if your site is just like or pretty good, it's probably not going to do well with manual outreach. And if that's the case, you're better off doing something like guest posting, where the quality of your site doesn't matter as much.
Okay, just a quick aside on this. Do you outsource your content, or do you outsource it, or do you do it all yourself?
Well, for Backlinko, I obviously write it all myself.
Yeah. But for an authority site, you'd maybe outsource. For an
authority site, I used to write it myself, but I've just been too busy, so I started outsourcing it.
Okay, so looking at some specific strategies, there are a number on your blog that are just fantastic. What are some of the things we can do to get this sort of link-inducing content? Well,
I think we spoke to the idea of looking at your top 10. That's not the only way to do it, but it's a great way to see, content that's proven to generate links, or at least topics that people are interested in your space. And I just published a case study on the site of a guy who ran this blog, and for months he was just posting like every week, and he wasn't getting any results. And then he saw something I published at QuickSprout, the Advanced Guide to Link Building, and he saw something in there. And he thought, okay, this is a piece of content I can use to stand out. And he tripled his search engine traffic in a week. And he also got a ton of referral traffic from, social media and blogs and forums and stuff like that. It was a huge success for him. So that's what you need to do. You want to create one piece of content that you can really show off and really puts your site on the map. And I think that in addition to the links and all the social shares you get to that content, I think that Google is paying a lot of attention to user interaction signals and brand signals. And if you have like that kind of amazing content right off the bat, it really does send a great impression to Google that your site is legit. So that would be step one, yeah.
Okay, so carry on with step two.
So once you have it, so it's a bit tricky because there's so many, content is such a broad word, right? It's so vague. But yeah, something like, it depends on your niche. That's the thing. It's really hard to come up with like, you should do this, because it totally depends on your niche. Like this guy that I referenced was in the link building niche. So he did an expert roundup where he asked like 50 link builders what their best link building tools were, and then collected all the people's opinions and wrote a blog post about it. And it was very successful. But if you're in a niche that's kind of obscure or weird, there aren't going to be 50 experts you can ask. So in that case, you want to do something different. So I had someone just reach out to me the other day, and it's an internet marketing agency, and one of their clients is a winery in the UK, as a matter of fact. I didn't know there were wineries there, but apparently there are.
Right.
And it's basically this very amazing infographic that kind of is a map of the UK, but with all the wineries on it. It's really cool. You can maybe link to it in the podcast.
Yeah, I'll do that, definitely.
It's very cool, man. It's not your typical infographic. It like takes up an entire web page, like from all the sides, and it's just very, very well done. So that's an idea. That's something that they can leverage for links, so easily. And he told me, using some of the promotional strategies I discussed on the site, he got a lot of links to that infographic. So it does depend on your niche, but you definitely need that kind of go-to content, because without that, it's going to be very difficult. So your next step would be to find the linkerati in your space.
Okay.
So linkerati are the people in your niche who own websites, right? So if you have a website, you have basically two people that visit your site. You have people that own websites in your niche and people that don't. So at Backlinko, someone like Laws, he's obviously part of the linkerati because he runs a website that's niche related. And obviously I'm getting a link from him from this podcast. So that's someone who you could get a link from. Now versus someone who's just heard of SEO, right? And just Googling like, what is SEO? And they find my site and they go to it. They're not part of the linkerati. They're still a valuable piece of traffic potentially, but they're not part of the linkerati. So you really want to find who the linkerati in your niche is. So then you can get your content right in front of them. And a great place to go for that is alltop.com. Okay. So alltop.com, it's like a directory of blogs that's curated very, very carefully. So it's usually like the cream of the crop in every industry. So just go to alltop.com and put in your keyword like wine or whatever, and it'll give you a list of like high authority blogs in that space.
Okay.
And then from there you can develop kind of a hit list of people that you want to get links from. So once you have your Alltop list, you want to reach out to all those people on your list in a very, very non-salesy, non-pushy way. So there's a few ways to go about it. The first is to just send them a message to say, hey, what's up? I just really like your stuff. And that can work surprisingly well. And that's actually how I started working with Neil Patel at QuickSprout. I just sent him an email saying, hey, I really like your site, because I really do like his site. And then he looked at my site, and then we started working together on a couple projects. So that's one way. You can just kind of reach out to these people, and you can keep a spreadsheet, that keeps track of who you reached out to and when you did, or use a program like BuzzStream, which can automate some of this. Mm-hmm. And then you basically, or you can do the hey, what's up, or you can just send them your content. You don't want to ask them to share it in any way or ask them to do anything with it, but just get it in front of them. And usually, if you get it in front of the right people, like I know Neil Patel, he tweets out like 50% of the people that ask him to tweet stuff. So maybe that tweet isn't going to be so valuable from an SEO perspective, but what it can do is it can get it in front of people, then they'll see it, and then they might link to it. So you would definitely want to get it in front of the influencers in your niche. And that's one of the reasons it's so important that it's outstanding, because when you show it to them and they see that it's great, they're going to have no problem sharing it. And then some of the people that see, when they share it, some of the people that see it will be part of the linkerati, and they'll link to you, right? That's one of many strategies. It's not the best because you're kind of relying on luck in a way for people just to see it and hopefully link to it. But that's one way to at least get some exposure for your content right off the bat.
And at this point, I also mentioned, is it the skyscraper technique?
Skyscraper technique, yeah.
I mean, that's just amazing. On backlinko.com, your blog, you mention basically producing content like you've outdone someone, you've blown them out of the water with your content, and then you go and find the type of people who linked to content like that you've just bettered. Say you use, is that right? Like something like Majestic SEO or something, and you get all those people that have linked to that, and you just casually approach them and say, you went and linked to the 100 Google algorithmic, signals. I've just done 200. Do you want to link to this as well? That's another great strategy that you outline, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't beat that. I mean, that's reverse engineering. That's the best, because you're looking at where your competition already gets links from, and you can try to get the same links as them. And that's one of the best ways to do it, is to beat their content and then reach out to those same people who linked and just give them a heads up about it. You don't even have to really ask for a link. If you frame your outreach the right way. And let me explain what I mean by that, because I've been doing this a lot lately. And when I first started doing outreach for links, I would kind of ask for a link, right? And that doesn't work. That kind of turns people off, which is understandable. No one wants to be pushed into doing something. So then what I started doing is changing the wording. So when I reached out to those people and say, hey, you linked out to the 100 ranking factors post, I'm wondering if you consider mentioning mine. So just changing the word from link to mention made a huge difference, because obviously when they mention it, they're going to link to it, right? So that alone made a huge difference in the success rate. But now I've even been doing what I like to call the inception technique, which is kind of where you make it like they came up with the idea to link to your content. So what I do is, when I find those people that have linked out to my competitors' content, I reach out to them, but I make sure that I say I found them by searching on Google, and I found the page that my competitor's link is on. So I'd be like, hey, I was searching for Google for, let's say, nursing degree information today, and I saw your post about how to find a nursing degree program that's right for you. It's really great. I couldn't help but notice that you linked to whatever. I also think that post is great. By the way, I just published something that you may want to check out. And I sometimes I put the link in there, but usually I ask them if they want to see it, because that helps increase their engagement. So then once they say they want to see it, they're sort of invested a little bit, and then you send them the content, and if they like it, they'll usually add it to the page, because it's kind of unsaid but understood that that's the next step for them. And if they don't, you can always say, it'd be great if you could mention it on the page. So
we're just really, these are great techniques. You're literally getting your fantastic quality content that trumps everyone else's in front of the people that have already linked to that kind of stuff, and you're not selling them the link, you're not pushing it down their throat, you're saying, look, it's here, and they're making the next step themselves psychologically, which I guess is a great sales technique, because you're convincing them to do it off their own back without really being too aggressive about it. Yeah. But the important thing is to make sure that you frame it within that page that you want your link on, because then it kind of puts the inception seed in their head. So if you just said hey, I was searching around online and I found your site today, it wouldn't have the same effect. I don't know why exactly psychologically, but I've been trying this a lot lately and it's working, where I just say I found this page, and I kind of make the conversation within the context of that particular page. And then when I send them the content, it's kind of they think, that page, this content, I have an idea. I'll link to it. Yeah. Now, it doesn't always work, right? I know, it's pretty devious, but it's the world we live in, my friend. But if the great part is, if they don't, put two and two together, you can always not push, but give them a nudge. Suggest it. You give them a little nudge, and that's when you say the mention thing. Oh, by the way, I really appreciate it if you would mention my guide on your page. And it's so non-intrusive to say something like that, right? Just mention it. It's really hard to say no to that kind of request. So that would be the follow-up. Now, your conversion rate for any sort of email outreach, I don't want to make it sound like, for listeners who haven't tried this before, that you're going to email 100 people and you're going to get 99 links. It's more like you're going to email 100 people, you're going to get 10 links. It's really, the conversion rate for any sort of outreach is really, really low. That's just the nature of the beast, even if you have the best scripts in the world. Now, in this case of the skyscraper technique that Laz mentioned, I got a 17% conversion rate, but that was really high. And that was basically because the content that I had was just so over the top that it converted really well. But let's be clear about this. The links you're getting, those 10 links, trump every old-fashioned spammy link building method you could try. These 10 links are absolutely fantastic, aren't they? Oh yeah, these are exactly the type of links that you want. They're links from niche relevant sites
that are typically on pages that have authority. So yeah, they're the best, links you can get pretty much. Now, that's the thing. It's quality over quantity. So, if you get 10 links, 10 links can be enough to rank for certain keywords, depending on the links and the keywords. So yeah, that's a good point.
Can I just stop you there? My 5-year-old son is trying to get into my office.
No worries.
So I'm just going to say, can you leave me alone for another 20 minutes and I'll be right back with you.
You're listening to the Content Champion podcast, showcasing high-quality content across the web.
Sorry, Brian, I'm back again.
No worries, man.
I've just bought him a Venus flytrap and he wants me to go and fill it with flies or something.
Oh, man. I had one of those. I had those when I was a kid. That's the greatest, man.
Yeah, that's really cool. Anyway, other factors that that play into this, the structure of the authority site. Do we have to link up to our Google authorship and our social media profiles and everything else to go hand in hand with this sort of high quality link building we're doing as well?
I mean, you don't have to, but I think it's a smart move because, links are always going to be the foundation of the Google algorithm, in my opinion. But that being said, they're only becoming less important, as time goes on, because Google's job basically right now is to diversify the algorithm as much as possible. So they have 200 ranking signals, maybe 75% of those are all link related. And what they want to do is get away from that. So then it's harder to game the algorithm, because if you have to, let's say, have an authoritative Google authorship profile, you have to have active and authoritative social media accounts, you have to have user interaction signals, and you need, those links. It's a lot harder to game all of those factors than just put up a random site and just like blast it with links. So that's something that you definitely want to include in your strategy for sure.
So in terms of, creating an authority site, you don't really want to be ever faking your own identity and things like this. You've got to really stand behind the site as yourself, like you say, because it is going to become harder to game. Is that what you do?
I use a pen name for the other site, so maybe...
Okay, so we can still do that, basically.
Yeah, I use a pen name, and I have a Twitter account, a Google Plus profile, a Facebook page, all that stuff. He quote unquote guest posts on other sites and uses authorship information sometimes. So it doesn't have to be like I am whoever, because the problem with that is that if you want to do 2 sites, how do you do that, right? So I do like to use a pen name on occasion, but for Backlinko, obviously, it's really me.
Okay. Now, we've talked a bit about the look of the sites. Obviously, we're using high quality WordPress themes and things like that. Where are you putting your ads? We talked about the monetization, CPA, ads and things. We don't want it to look too spammy. There's all these rules about too many adverts above the fold and all this sort of stuff. How do you make the sites look so that they get better conversions and still make money, sort of thing?
Well, that's a good question. Well, you've got to make them look super nice and super professional. And there's no way around it. You do have to hire a designer to make that happen, because even the best theme, it may look good, but it won't look branded. And that will, hurt your engagement metrics that Google is paying attention to, those user experience metrics. So I would recommend hiring a designer to customize your theme to make it look really nice. And I would also have the same designer try to integrate your ads as much as possible within your site. But that depends on how you're monetizing, okay? So if you're, let's say, like building a list, you'd want like a feature box on the homepage that kind of stands out, right? And you want people to sign up. So if you go look at like socialtriggers.com, he has a huge feature box at the top of the homepage. And a lot of other sites have this, blogs especially. So if you're looking to monetize with the list, you actually want your monetization sort of to stand out, right? Or if you have AdSense, you want your ads to stand out so people actually click on them. But I prefer to, monetize with CPA. That's my favorite way to monetize, because I find the money is the best, basically. And if you do that, you want to integrate the ads into your site. Or if you promote products as an affiliate, you want to integrate the monetization into your site, so it doesn't even really look like ads. And one, great practical way to see what I'm talking about is to head to, any like hosting review site. If you look at hosting review sites, which are super competitive because, each commission for hosting is like $65.
Right.
They're no dummies the way they set up their site. So if you notice, none of them have like, content and like banner ads. None of them. They all have like a top 10 list of sites, and it just looks like a part of the website, but it's sort of deviously monetized, because obviously when you click on one of the links to go to like iPage or Bluehost, it's an affiliate link. But the way they do it is really brilliant. And another example, or two others I'll give you right now, is nerdwallet.com. It's like a personal finance site, and they do a great job of integrating their ads. It doesn't even look monetized, but when you're on the site and then you search for a credit card based on your whatever criteria and you click on it, that's obviously a commission for them. That's all monetized with CPA. Or if you are looking for, I don't know, like a bank account or an insurance quote, it's all CPA monetized, but it's all it's like within these tools that they've set up. So it doesn't even feel like you're being advertised to. And Money Supermarket, which is a huge, personal finance site in the UK, it's actually a publicly traded company in the UK stock exchange, also just 100% CPA monetized, and they integrate their ads. And there's no way to do that without a designer. So that's what I would recommend, is trying to have a designer. So if you had a site about like nursing schools, you'd want to have your homepage like kind of information about how to find a nursing school, but also that ranks the top 5. As opposed to like a generic looking theme with banner ads that link to CPA offers. Your conversion rate will be like 10 times higher if you integrate the ads into your site.
Okay, so it's all about first impressions, isn't it, really?
It is, absolutely. And design is huge, because also not only will this help your conversions, but for link building, if people go to your site and it's ugly, you could have the meaning of life on there and it won't matter. People won't link to it. Design makes a huge, huge difference.
Okay, moving on to other factors that affect our ranking as well. I was mucking around with the Google speed test site tool thing, and I got my personal website, my portfolio website, up from a 51, which I was rather alarmed at, to a 92.
Nice.
So I just literally was playing around with one of these browser caching plugins and managed to and scrunching my images and things like this, and I got the speed up from 51% to 92% or whatever the metric is. Are these things important? Fast servers, quick loading images, all this type of thing. It has to be streamlined, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is important. It's not the end of the world. You could definitely rank a site that with a 50 speed with enough links, but it's going to make your job that much harder. Because not only, is that a ranking signal in and of itself, but, let's say you're doing outreach and you email someone and they're busy, like a baller in your industry, and they're actually going to look at your content, and it's taking forever to load. They may just give up and then move on with their life, and you just missed out on a golden opportunity. And also for, user experience, that's a metric that Google looks at. So if people are coming to your site, it's taking forever to load and they just click away, that's not good. Also, for conversion. So when people go to your site and it loads instantly, you're basically putting the ads in front of their face like as soon as they get there, which is what you want, So you want them to kind of see them as soon as possible. And if it's slow loading, you're going to get a high bounce rate, and obviously bounces aren't going to convert for you. And also people they're going to have like less time on site, less page views. It's very important.
Can I ask you something which might seem a silly question, but
sure.
What happens if you go to a CPA network, you pick your nursing times ad, whatever it is, to go on your nursing training authority site, and you design it around these, and they change the banners or the colours or whatever?
Well, that's the thing. You don't have to worry about that so much, because if you integrate it the right way, you're not really using their banners and stuff. So, for example, let's say that you're running a nursing school site, and you're promoting like Phoenix University, okay, which is like an online university.
Yeah.
You would put like their logo and some information on the homepage about them and have them click through. And just look at the hosting sites to see what I'm talking about. And if they change their logo, yes, you have to go in and change the logo. But that's not a huge problem. So like for my authority site, I had one of the sites I was promoting on that site rebranded totally. And it took me like 5 seconds just to like change the logo and change the name from like name A to the new name B, because it's otherwise exactly the same.
Okay, so we've started with the money. We've done our keyword research. We've built out fantastic content. We've started to do some link outreach, getting some good links in. We've linked in, perhaps with a pen name, all of our social media profiles. We are active on those platforms. We then have our CPA ads built into a fine-looking website. Everything just reeks of authority. We're the most authoritative site in the space. How long before you start seeing some moolah, some cash come in?
Well, if you're at that point, you should already be seeing some cash come in. You know, maybe you're not at like a positive ROI yet, but you should be pretty close. Because if you're already, you know, you have great content on your site, you've done outreach, you're getting exposure, all that stuff's already happened, the traffic should be there already coming in. Maybe it's not where it should be or it's going to be, but within, you know, like I said, this guy that I just talked about in this case study, his name is Robert. He's actually a British guy. And, you know, his site went from, I don't know how many visitors, but it increased by like 370% in a week. That was just search traffic. He also got like 3,000 referral visitors from that one piece of content. So there's SEO can take a lot of time, but it doesn't have to take that much time because he's already ranking #1 for the keyword link building tools. And his site doesn't have a lot of authority. It's just that one piece of content. So if you do the content and the outreach part, within a week or two, you can already start making some money.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay.
Yeah, within like a couple days, he was ranked for link building tools. And then part of that was freshness that gave him a little bump. But then he dropped a bit. Then he started doing outreach to build links to it. And now he's #1. He's been #1 solid for like 2 weeks. And he gets a ton of traffic. That's a good keyword too, because that's like a buyer keyword. You know, someone link building tools is someone looking to buy a tool.
This is a great point to mention that one of your sites on Backlinko that you mentioned is making over $9,000 a month. So, you know, this is sustainable business type opportunity, proper business, if you do it the correct way that you've outlined.
That's right, absolutely. But it has to be approached like that from the start. You know, it has to be approached like that site that makes $9,000 a month. You know, when I first started SEO, I wasn't creating sites like that. So the opportunity was never there. You know, so once I started creating like real sites, that's when you can start making, you know, really good money.
How long did that site take to reach $9,000?
About 4 months.
Wow. So, you know, I mean, speaking directly to listeners, Brian obviously knows exactly what he's talking about. That's incredible. 4 months.
I know, man. It's crazy. So, you know, and that's when I first launched that site. Actually, I didn't know as much as I do now because I'm always doing stuff. I'm always learning, right?
Yeah.
So now the learning curve is much shorter. So I would be shorter period of time. But one of the reasons that site has done so well is because it's like the perfect size niche. Like I said, I have 50 pieces of content on there that are very good, that target keywords, you know, that are sort of like medium tail, long tail, not super long tail. And then I have like 20 others that, you know, in the pipeline. So it's like the perfect size niche. And that's what you really want. That's really important because now I'm ranking for like all sorts of keywords. And that's why I get so much traffic. It's not so much from like these certain little keywords. It's not so much from the big keywords. It's from all the other pages that are ranking highly for these like branded searches.
And in terms of I know the length of the content doesn't really matter because it can be authoritative in other forms. It can be a short piece of text, an amazing video or an amazing infographic or something like that. But your text articles, they're pretty hefty, are they? 1,500, 2,000 words.
Yeah, I like to make them that long for SEO and for user experience, actually. Like you said, man, I mean, there's some haikus that are amazing. So it doesn't have to be long to be good, but I've never been able to cover a subject in depth without hitting that word count. Now, if you're like really good, maybe you can, but I've never been able to do that. And I think from an SEO standpoint, it's better to have longer content.
On page SEO, you're just doing the standard in the URL, in a title tag, in the description, that type of thing, but not really going too heavy on it.
No, you don't need to. Basically, there's two purposes of on-page SEO. One is to let Google know what your page is about. That's the really straightforward stuff, right? That's putting your keyword in the title tag. And I do a few other things that no one knows if it makes a difference, but it's always worked for me, like putting the keyword in the first 100 words of the article, which just makes sense because if you're talking about nursing degrees, it makes sense that you would put nursing degrees in the first 100 words, right? But then the second part that a lot of people ignore is that you're also showing Google quality signals. So obviously they gauge the quality of content using mostly links and social signals and user interaction signals, but they also base it somewhat on your on page. So I always do things like include multimedia, use a lot of bullets. I link out to other resources. That really shows that the content is pretty good. Because if you look at a spammy site, they never link out to authority sites ever. They always have huge blocks of text. They never break things up. They hardly ever use video or images. They just maybe put like a stock image in there. So it's just another way to separate yourself from the rest.
And are you building a list with the authority site that's making $9,000 a month? Is that something you're actively doing to sort of? I mean, Neil Patel does that really well. You sign up, you get directed back into a sort of closed loop of more content, and he drives interaction that way.
Yeah, I don't actually. It's one of those things where last year, when the site started making $9,000 a month, I was like, I'm going to start building a list because the money's in the list. But it does depend on your niche. That advice doesn't necessarily apply because the traffic that comes to this particular site is all over the map. And the real value of a list is that you have a very targeted demographic that you can market offers to. Right. So, my site gets like 75-year-old grandmas and, 15-year-old girls. So building a list doesn't make so much sense because then besides the niche that the site is in and promoting offers within that niche, which is definitely something I could try, but I don't, there's not a lot of other, verticals I could market to them. So I actually don't. It's just direct, like CPA integrated, just like I had mentioned. And I don't have any list building stuff on there.
And your CPA offers pay, what was it, $25 a pop?
Well, no, but that's for like nursing schools and stuff. The niche that I'm in, it pays like between $1.50 and $4 per lead.
So you're getting massive traffic.
Getting good traffic. But it's actually not that. It's only like 1,500 uniques a day. But the real value is that it converts really highly, partially because a huge part of conversions that no one talks about is the type of traffic you're getting. I have some keywords just convert really well and some that don't. The psychology behind which ones, it's hard to say. But for some reason, this is a high converting demographic, even though it's not one demographic, whatever. And the offer, I get like a 25% click-through rate on my CPA offers. Now, that would never happen if I had AdSense or something like that, right? 25% would probably get your account banned. So that's one of the other reasons it does so well is because the ads are integrated and they kind of fit with what the person's looking for when they make the search. So if someone's looking for like nursing schools and you show them 10 nursing schools, those are ads, of course, but it also fits in line with what they're looking for. So the click-through rate's going to be very high. Versus someone searching for like, how to become a nurse. They're not at the stage of, signing up for a nursing school information packet. So that's not going to convert as well.
So thinking about in the keyword research at the beginning, obviously think about where the money is, but think about when you're looking at those keywords in the competition, what's perhaps the psychology behind that search? Why are they putting that in? Really, why would you put that into a search engine? What would you expect to see if you landed there? And then try and better the content that's already provided.
Exactly.
Yeah, because sometimes people just look at it as a pure algorithmic thing. Oh, I can rank for this to 2,500 exact match searches a month, and I know it's low competition. And then you've got, a list of quite irrelevant stuff on the page, and wonder why it doesn't convert into anything.
Yeah. I've been there. I've done that before.
Yeah,
so I know. I've been there, man. It sucks. Actually, it's really demoralizing because you think like I deserve to get more money from this because I ranked the site number 1 or whatever in the top 3. But yeah, you got to think of but you can objectively measure it somewhat by cost per click. So if you look at AdWords and you look at the cost per click that people are paying, that gives you a good idea of how well you can monetize the traffic. It's not perfect, but you'll notice that if you look at more general informational searches like how to pick a nursing school, that has a much lower cost per click than something like best nursing school, where that person's like ready to sign up. You know what I mean? That's traffic people are willing to pay for. So that's another way you can check if you're not sure. And just look at the cost per click in AdWords.
Okay, just winding things out before we finish up with a couple of final questions. This has been a fantastic sort of how-to, step-by-step, build an authority site. Just one thing worries me about this, though, and I guess it worries a lot of people, is that, you can do all this hard work. I think it's Larry Page was talking about Google authorship into 2014 being something that they're only going to show sites that have bothered to install authorship. All this type of thing is becoming more draconian, the algorithm and what Google is looking for. We don't want to be in a position where we put in all this work and wake up one morning and the whole thing's been dumped. Theoretically, that could happen, but I guess what do you do to mitigate that? Can you, certainly in terms of off-site link building, keep a list of all the links you've built in an Excel spreadsheet, so you can say disavow those links if necessary, and then you can make any on-site changes quite easily and try and get back in their good books? Is that what you would do as a sort of insurance policy?
Well, I don't really have like a contingency plan, to be honest with you, because if you do the stuff that I'm recommending, that could always happen, of course, like you said, that's a possibility for sure. But you can't really mitigate too much, because if it does happen, you can go from there. You don't really have to keep track of your links, because you can always use a tool like Ahrefs or Majestic SEO and get your links later and disavow them if it comes to that. But if you're building super quality links from relevant sites in your niche, your chances of being hit are like slim to none. Of course it can happen, but I think the best way to diversify isn't to prepare for some Google penalty. It's to diversify your traffic sources, so that if your site does get hit, you're not eating dog food for 6 months while you create another site. So that would be the best way. And the way I wouldn't diversify is through multiple sites, because that's a mistake a lot of people make, thinking that it's safer to have 5 sites in one because you're kind of hedging your bets. But after Penguin, people realize it's not the case, because if you had 20 sites and they all go all at the same time. So you don't hedge your bets with 20 sites. Actually, you're safer with one site because you put more TLC into that site. So every link that you build is like super careful. You make sure your anchor text isn't over optimized. You're not tempted to just buy some cheap link package. And because of that, you're actually less likely to get hit by a penalty.
So it's kind of like one site to rule them all.
Yeah, man, you definitely want to do one site, man. I wish someone really put that into my head when I first started, because that took me years to figure out. One site, one project, and just like balls to the wall with that one site.
And what strategies in terms of expanding direct visitors from other places? We're looking at perhaps obviously social media, forums, getting in front of great quality guest posting on high value, high traffic sites within the industry, like you mentioned at the top of the podcast.
Yeah, that's it, man. I mean, there aren't so many traffic sources out there, and that's one of the reasons that SEO is so important. Is because right now with Backlinko, for example, search engine traffic is a huge part of that. I get like a third of my traffic from search engines, and I don't know. I mean, that would be pretty detrimental if I just didn't even have that as an option, and if I just had to do guest posting or forums or social media. And also the traffic from Google is just the best. It converts best. And I know a lot of people who don't have like a site that gets traffic from other places, you may not realize how poor converting social media traffic is. It's not a real alternative to search. There is no alternative to search, and that's why it's so important. So you want to diversify with other traffic sources, but they usually can't replace the quality traffic that you get from Google. So you definitely want to stay on the safe side and not say, oh, well, if I get hit, I'll do whatever. Kind of make that like you almost want it to be like a devastating scenario, because then it'll make sure that you do the right things. You know what I mean?
And what's your take on Google being deliberately difficult with their own algorithm and ranking engine so that they can get more people to sign up to AdWords?
I don't get into that. I don't get into that whole thing.
I don't really.
I think it's a huge waste of time to like worry about Google and they're making money and they're doing this. I can't be bothered, right? And I notice a lot of people in SEO write about this, like Google is, flawed in this way. Google is all about the money. And maybe, I just look at SEO as a way to drive traffic to a site that I can make money from. As soon as another good quote from the SEO world is, as soon as Google starts worrying about my business, I'll start worrying about theirs. And that's kind of how I look at it, I don't get into the whole like black hat, white hat debate, the whole like where is Google going. I just kind of focus on, what's working and executing. because I think that it's true. Google is making it harder, but I don't think they have some malicious master plan where they're trying to drive people away from SEO into AdWords. Although who knows? Maybe that is a master plan. I think it was really to clean up the results. They were really bad before Penguin. The sites I was ranking that I was able to rank before were terrible, and and now I couldn't do that with the same strategies. So I don't think there's anything necessarily malicious going on, but there's no doubt, like you said, Laz, it's definitely getting harder to rank. But if you do the right things, man, you can be good.
Yeah, put the work in and the rewards will be there in the long run. Now, look, this has been a fantastic interview. I just want to remind everyone where they can find you online. I'm a member of your mailing list. I'm on your blog the whole time. It's just a fantastic SEO resource. So can you remind us where we can find you on the internet, please?
Well, definitely the first place is Backlinko.com. So head over there and definitely sign up for the newsletter because there's a lot of strategies and case studies and things that I don't post on the blog that's only for the newsletter. And then you can also find me on Twitter @Backlinko. Those are the two places that are best.
Wait for it, listeners. Here comes the PS question.
Now, this is the part of the podcast I like to call the PS question, where I ask online marketing experts for their advanced strategies in content marketing, SEO, or link building. So I'd like to ask you, Brian, please, if you've got any advanced strategies for SEO or link building you can share with us.
Oh, that's a good question, Laz. Let me think. It's kind of hard to think of that. It's kind of like someone asking you, describe yourself. What do you like? It's one of those questions that's hard to come up with something. But basically, yeah, I would say that in terms of an advanced strategy would be to reverse engineer other parts of other people's sites as much as possible. So take it beyond just the links that are pointing to their site and reverse engineer their content by looking at what's done well for them, by going to putting their site into Open Site Explorer and then looking at top pages and see what's performed well for them. Reverse engineer their relationships, so see the people that are linking to them. So that's one tip. Another one is that if you want to find really good guest posting opportunities, go to any site and look at author bios that include Google authorship information. So someone that links back to their Google Plus profile. And then when you look at their Google Plus profile, it literally would give you a list of places that they've guest posted under their contributor to section. So head to their Google Plus profile and look at contributes to, and it shows a list of all the sites that they've contributed to because they have to link to them to complete the loop for their Google authorship. So you can find like unlimited guest posting opportunities if you do that.
That's a fantastic piece of advice. So we get 2 tips for the price of 1. So
2 tips. So reverse engineer, and then this is kind of like reverse engineering, but it's a little bit different. So yeah, just look at sites in your niche that accept guest posts, and if you see the same person posting in a couple of places or you notice that they use Google authorship, look at their profile and scroll down to where it says contributes to, and that'll usually be a list. I found a list the other day of like 50 sites in the internet marketing niche that this person has posted on. So it works.
Fantastic. Well, look, Brian, thank you very much indeed for your time today. Really appreciate it. And everybody, go and have a look at backlinko.com. I recommend it. And good luck with everything in future.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So there we are, folks. That was session 10 of the Content Champion podcast. Thanks again to Brian Dean for a fantastic interview. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio and the BlackBerry Network. And don't forget, you can still enter the Content Champion Awards at contentchampion.com. But until next time...
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's the Content Champion.